majina anaitwa Commissioner Hassan Nur Hassan wa IEBC. Kongamano hili lilikuwa linahusisha wakaaji wa sehemu mbalimbali kutoka Narok, Nakuru, Bomet, Laikipia, Samburu, vitongoji mbalimbali, na inahusisha wakaaji wa sehemu hizi waje wajadiliane kuhusu jambo hili la campaign financing. Tumeona ya kwamba siasa zetu katika taifa hili imekuwa ni ghali sana na imekuwa ni ngumu sana kujua ni nani ameingia kwa njia ya pesa mingi ama ni nani kiongozi mwema angeingilia. Kama huna pesa huna nafasi katika siasa zetu. Kwa hivyo ilibidi ya kwamba bunge na hata kikatiba tumeona ya kwamba mambo haya hayawezi kuendelea, na tumejadiliana kwa muda mrefu sana kutoka mwaka wa 2012 mpaka saa hii. Majadiliano yanaendelea tu kurekebisha kwamba sheria hizi imepatikana na inafuatiliwa vile inatakikana. Kwa hivyo hilo ndio imetuleta pamoja. Itasaidia mwananchi kwa sababu ukiangalia siasa za hivi sasa hakuna kipimo ya utumiaji wa pesa. Ukiwa na pesa nyingi wewe utachaguliwa kwa sababu utanunua. Itakuwa ni tunajiweka katika hatari ya kuuza kura zetu. Hiyo hatari ndio tunaanza kupunguza tukiona ya kwamba tumelimit utumiaji wa pesa kiasi fulani. Kamati mbalimbali ya bunge imehusishwa katika kikao hiki na tumezungumza na washikadau wengi katika mpango huu, na tuko katika sasa mwisho ili tuweze kugazeti kwa Kenya Gazette. Ningependa kusema ya kwamba IEBC nasema ya kwamba IEBC inaaminika kwa sababu tumefanya uchaguzi 32 tangu mwaka mmoja uliopita, na uchaguzi hiyo yote tulifanya kwa njia sawa bila tatizo yoyote. Kwa hivyo hiyo ni ishara ya kuonyesha kwamba uaminifu yetu iko hali ya juu sana, na ningependa kuhakikisha Wakenya ya kwamba sisi hatuwezi kushurutishwa na mtu yeyote katika taifa hili. Sisi tunashurutishwa na katiba yetu na jinsi Wakenya watakavyopiga kura yao. Tutaheshimu kura yao, tutaheshimu uamuzi wao, hiyo ndio itatulinda. Asante.
My name is Karen Wahungu. I am an advocate of the High Court of Kenya and I work in the Legal Directorate of the Commission. We are conducting public participation on the election campaign financing framework. That is the ECF Act. It's a 2013 Act, but to date we've not been able to implement. So we are conducting public participation in order for us to operationalize the regulations and the spending limits. And this follows the direction of the court in two matters that were before the court. We were directed to ensure that our regulations and limits consider the views of the public and are alive to the realities of the citizens in different parts of this country. So that is what we have been doing. We have the draft documents developed, and now we were just seeking feedback from the members of the public as well as different organizations and institutions as to whether all areas of campaign financing have been checked, what is the best way we can enforce our regulation power, and also what areas that people feel may not have been addressed that they would like us to consider in the final draft before we can gazette them of election campaign financing regulation. I think as the Commissioner has mentioned, the main thing is to regulate the amount of money. That's verbatim what Article 88(4)(I) provides, that we want there to be a level playing field, that citizens can finally realize the fact that people are elected because of what Sera, if that is what I would say, because of Sera zao, because of the ideas that they have, the change that they can bring to the communities, and not just because of how deep their pockets are. So in summary, that is what this legislation seeks to do, to ensure that there is a level playing field. Whether someone has money or not, but they're able to meet the other requirements of the law, they can stand for election, they can be able to communicate the ideas that they have, and they can have just as good as a chance as someone who's more privileged to stand for election. I think a lot of those areas have been highlighted in the regulations. There's reporting requirements that are there. The Commission requires the candidates, the political parties, and the different committees. There are certain reporting obligations on all these categories of persons. So periodically, There's also the campaign expenditure period within which this period is supposed to, within which this reporting is supposed to be undertaken, but also the fact that the Commission has power to investigate where it feels that something is not in order. It can request or direct rectification of certain records, and it even has sanction powers and enforcement, which includes barring someone from contesting in an election. Yeah, we've explored different ways to ensure that our stakeholder engagement and public participation is as extensive as possible. We've had physical meetings with different categories of persons, such as political parties, a meeting like this, public participation, where we just engage, but we also invited memoranda from the public. We did a notice in the newspaper, and we requested people to submit their feedback based on the draft regulations and proposed limits. And so far, we are grateful that many members of the public have been able to submit written memoranda. But further to the written memoranda, now we've had engagements such as this, where we have verbal conversations on those areas highlighted. Yeah, that has also been a big part of the discussion today, protection of the special interest groups. So we believe the first thing is that there is no flaw. So besides the fixed costs such as nomination fees, someone does not have to spend any other costs. You can just move and communicate your ideas. But also we've taken the comments that have been made, but there is also provision, being alive to the fact that there are certain costs that SIGs may incur. If they are justifiable and reasonable, the Commission can consider and see whether they meet the threshold of justifiability that's set out under Section 18 of the Act.
My name is Rafiq Mohammed from Nakuru County. I am a businessman, also a peace ambassador. Today's event was a milestone, and we find this as a very important subject matter that will neutralize and also bring equitable and equity in election process. We are so proud that this process is going through, and we are in hope that this gazettement process will help us to nurture our democracy, as our democracy is so important that we need to keep our status as the highest level of democratic allowances, in showing that our elections will be free and fair and accommodate those people who want to vie but then don't have to use a lot of money, and that equality is what we want. Wakati imefika sasa, Kenya tunataka umoja na tunataka kusikia maono, isipokuwa wengine ambao wanatumia pesa kwa njia isiyofaa. Leo tumepewa regulations ambayo itaweza kuweka uwazi kwamba financing ya campaign iweze kuwa regulated, na hiyo ni mjadala muhimu sana katika nchi yetu ya kuweza kuingiza watu wote katika hii campaign waliokuwa na maono ama sera ambayo zinafaa. Na hapo ndo tunaendelea kuboresha, na tunasema Kenya iwe na amani na tuwe na hisia ambayo zinaleta maendeleo na sio hisia za chuki na ukabila. Asanteni sana.
Kwa majina mimi naitwa Pastor Belly kutoka End Revival Ministry. Today was a very important meeting to us. It was very informative, and we are only praying that whatever deliberations that we had presented here will be captured and it will be part of the bill. It's also my plea to parliamentarians, that is a legislative body, it's high time that they should enact this regulation, so that at least we can cap the issues of campaign expenditure. In our country, campaigns are very expensive. Either we are selling our votes to the highest bidder, and then we at the expense of service delivery. We are only praying that this time round, Parliament will move above board and will ensure that this law works. And we plead with the IEBC to be able to act within the parameters of law and apprehend anybody that violates the laid-down principles that we have said. As for persons with disability, we are concerned, maybe to IEBC, to ensure that at least this electoral process also includes persons with disability. We've been praying that election is secretive. The law provides that election should be, I think it's Article 86. But now, how can it be secretive, especially on behalf of the blind people? That we need to have what we normally call, these ones are that will capture the issues of braille ballot papers, that will capture the issues of the blind, so that we don't want to hear this issue of assisting the voters that are assisted. It impedes them and develops stigma to them because they want elections to be very secretive. However, I also plea with the legal counsel in IEBC to ensure that at least we amend the IEBC Act, so that as the way the law is, the chair of IEBC has a lot of powers. Because if you read Article 138 sub Article 10, in terms of presidential election, the commission tallies, the chair declares. But the spirit behind the constitution, Article 250 sub Article 2, is that the minimum number of commissions are 3 and the maximum 9. We want this time round that the chair will declare the majority report. Because previous election in 2017, we had the chair declaring the minority report. And then in 2022 again, the chair and the ex, 4 commissioners left, and they only left with 3, and the chair declares. So that, once the commission is divided, every other Kenyan is divided. There's this perception that the chair is very powerful and requires some issue to tame the chair to ensure that all commissioners also have input in terms of the electoral. Otherwise, thank you so much. It's a good process, and I pray and I believe that these laws will be enacted. Thank you.
Majina naitwa Paul Odhiambo kutoka Interreligious Council of Kenya, Nakuru, nikiwakilisha Kenya Conference of Catholic Bishops.
Na mmeweza kushiriki katika kongamano hili kwa nia
Kama sekta ya kidini tumeweza kushiriki katika kongamano hili ili kuonyesha interest ya watu wa Mungu na makanisa mbalimbali na pia kutoa maoni yetu kama wakilishi wa watu wa Mungu.
Kama wakilishi wa madhehebu mbalimbali, pengine inaweza kushiriki vipi katika swala hili la IEBC?
Tunashukuru sana IEBC kwa sababu ya hii public participation, na kama wakilishi wa Interreligious Council of Kenya Nakuru, tuna mikutano yetu ya kila mwezi ambao maoni ambao tumepata tutaweza kuketi na viongozi wa kidini wa eneo hili la Nakuru ili tuweze kutathmini, diposa tuweze kufikisha ujumbe huu kwa Wakristo na wa madhehebu mbalimbali.